Stat of the day brought to you by Panini America. Your Hall of Fame, Jared Allen, Antonio Gates, Eric Allen, and Sterling Sharp. By the way, we did some research. I was curious about this. Jared Allen had 4 career safeties. That's tied for the most in NFL history. He did get credit for a sack when Dan Orlovsky stepped out of the back of the end zone in 2008 in a game between the Vikings and the Lions. The Vikings won that game 12-10. Let's welcome in Dan Orlovsky of the Mothership. You can see him on NFL Live. On site with Marcus Spears, Mina Kimes, Ryan Clark, Laura Rutledge, today at 4 Eastern. Dan is actually going to be on the call with Chris Fowler, Lewis Riddick for fans in Australia and New Zealand. See if
is this mic live?
That's live.
I have to sit close to you after that?
Well, if Jared Allen doesn't make the Hall of Fame, I don't mention that.
So there's a couple things. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan.
Great to see you guys. Happy end of football season. Schefter actually on NFL Live yesterday gave the list of the guys that were options and went to Jared Allen. He was like, I honestly think this, and he plays the play. He goes, this might be the play that puts Jared Allen in the Hall of Fame, and thinks he should thank me for during his acceptance speech. If so, you mentioned we lost that game 12-10.
Yeah.
That's also the 0-16 season as well. So safeties are worth 2 points.
But didn't you last year tell me that one of your assistant coaches fell asleep during a game?
Yes, that was actually that year. No, that was in 2007. I had a coach fall asleep in a game. I also had a coach during install. So Wednesday morning, you're installing your game plan of that week. I had a coach we had binders back then, not iPads, open up the game plan binder, and he was sitting next to me, and inside of his game plan binder, he had another binder, and he was prepping for a job interview at a college during the install. So I look over to my right, and like a kid hides something in his book or something, he had another binder of information that he was trying to gather to prep for that job interview.
How did that help your confidence level?
Yeah. Wait, what do you want me to do on third down here? So.
Did you have a vote for MVP?
I did, yes, sir.
And you voted for?
I think I could reveal it now. I voted for Josh Allen. Okay. I voted for Josh MVP. I went co-offensive player of the year for Lamar and Saquon. Defensive player of the year, I believe I went Surtain Jr. I think I did offensive rookie of the year, Jaden. Defensive rookie of the year, I think I did Quinyon Mitchell. But I went MVP for Josh, yes.
Deion was here last hour, and he was adamant. He said Lamar Jackson's the MVP. Tell me why Josh Allen is your MVP.
Because I think we've gotten away from the real meaning of it. You know, it has to be the value of how you perform with who you're doing it with and who you do it against. I mean, if we're just going to take the person who has the best stats and give him the MVP, then we don't. There's no need for a voter. You just take the person who has the best stats, the quarterback who has the best stats. And so I voted for Josh because I think that Josh did more with less. It's not like he had nobody with him. I'm not minimizing the other guys, but I think that the fact that he was the quarterback of the team that was the 2 seed. He beat both number 1 seeds in respective conferences. He has a historic year, 40 touchdowns, 8 turnovers, 14 sacks. Without having that, he didn't have James Cook got 1,009 yards this year, and he got him, the last game of the season type of thing. No receiver that's a dominant 1,000-yard receiver. So, for the quarterback's performance and the value of that performance carrying in many ways that team to the 2-seed defense, I think that was middle of the pack. When it comes to the statistical performance, Lamar was sensational. But I think the MVP doesn't go to the best player. It goes to the person who brought the most value to their team.
It's interesting that Lamar proved the doubters wrong, that he couldn't throw the football. Right? That was the big knock.
Yeah. I don't think it was an accurate one. I think it was a stereotypical one when he came out of school.
Well, he doesn't throw it in the prototypical way. But we compliment Patrick Mahomes, who doesn't throw it in the prototypical way.
Right.
And it just felt like he had to overcome that. Josh Allen had to overcome, dude, you got to take care of the football, stop trying to be Superman every single play. Both of those guys accomplished that, which I loved seeing, that maturity of understanding what can I do and when can I do it. But you still look at, if we do the MVP after the season.
Yeah.
How different would NFL history be if we gave MVPs after the Super Bowl?
Oh, big time. I mean, if if Patrick in Kansas City win, you'd go, how are we not going to give it to Patrick given everything that he accomplished this season? You can make the case for Saquon as well. That's kind of like the downside, at least it feels that way for me this year, is there was I felt 5 or 6 guys that you could make a legit justifiable case to vote for them. And if you don't vote for them, you're knocking their performance or you're making them a lesser player. You're trying to take away from them. And it's just the reality of only giving that award to one person. Saquon could win it this year. If you told me you voted for Saquon for MVP, I'm probably not going to argue a lot with it about you. The same if you vote for Lamar. The same, honestly, if you voted for Jamar Chase or Joe Burrow. I wouldn't sit there and argue against those guys, but I do think there's an argument for each of them individually. But if you voted for, after the postseason, I think it would change a lot of it for sure.
Dan Orlovsky of the Mothership joining us here in New Orleans. Deion was talking about his son. He said he's going first, second, or third. What do you think?
I don't disagree.
I think he guaranteed that. He said, I know he's going first, second, or third.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. It seems like Deion is a speak it into existence type of person. I haven't started to dive into those guys yet. I've watched them a little bit. I'm a huge fan of Shedeur. I think if Shedeur was coming out 6 years ago, I might feel a little bit differently because 6 years ago was when, Lamar hit the scene, Patrick hit the scene. So you better go be a freakazoid athlete, run around and make a ton of plays. The quarterback position is a little bit of a settling into affirming the importance of you've got to be deadly from the pocket. We're back to that a little bit. Now, you have to have the ability to go make plays with your legs, and I think Shedeur is. I think his ball placement is awesome.
But he's not athletic.
I think Shedeur is athletic. He's not a dynamic athlete. I wouldn't sit here and tell you I think Jordan Love and C.J. Stroud are...
But is he like Russell Wilson? Or is he more like C.J. Stroud?
I think he's probably... I would put him in the Jordan Love, C.J. Stroud grouping where, he can hurt you with his legs, but you're not going to design plays for him to run around and make plays with his legs.
Okay. And Deion talked about, he's going to talk to these teams behind. He's already started talking to them. He wants to see if he can get his son placed.
He will.
Somewhere.
I'm a firm believer, and I've said this publicly, and people think I'm crazy, when I say Deion is not going to allow Shedeur to go to somewhere that he does not believe sets him up for success. And people are like, well, Shedeur is not worthy of that, or he's not that. Okay, yeah. Think that Deion will make sure he goes to the right place.
So that's
right place.
That's not Cleveland.
I would be surprised if Deion thought that was a good landing spot for
Tennessee.
him. Yes. I would be surprised if Deion thought that was a good landing spot.
So he's going to go 3 to the Giants.
I would imagine I would tell you the ideal situation for him would be the Las Vegas Raiders, and then probably the Giants because of the Giants' history. And I do think that keeping their general manager and head coach provides a little bit of stability, at least in the process of the offseason and whatnot. So I would put those 2 places as the likeliest.
And it's nice to walk in and see Malik Neighbors there if you go to
just throw him the ball.
Yeah.
What's the coverage? It doesn't matter. Throw it to that guy.
Who should trade for Myles Garrett?
I think the number one team that should trade for Myles Garrett is
I'll give you my thought. I think the Lions should.
Okay, I keep hearing that.
But they have the draft capital.
Okay.
You got to go all in. This team has to win a Super Bowl. And they got cap room. You got to win.
Okay, so
you got to win.
My pushback on the Lions is this. The only reason or the main reason they are here right now is because they've actually gotten the draft right. I was there when everyone would go, why do you guys suck? And I'd be like, look at our last 10 first-round picks. They're bad.
Yeah.
And then look at their last 5 or 6 first-round picks, second-round picks. They're all great. So has an organization that finally has figured it out, finally feels like they got all the right pieces there, are they going to pivot away from the reason why? Or the number one difference is because Brad Holmes is drafted well and take those picks.
The window's now.
I understand. I agree with that. That's why they should have traded for Max Crosby last year or during the season.
Yes.
So that's why I like the Lions I hear, but that's not necessarily how they've gotten to this point. Minnesota is the one team that I sit there because if you're Cleveland and it becomes a conversation for you that you're willing to entertain it. It starts with the number 2 pick. Do you like one of those quarterbacks? Outside of the Shedeur, Deion, do you like one of those 2 quarterbacks? Because they need one. If you don't, then Minnesota is the team to call, because then you go, well, what are you doing at quarterback? Because if Minnesota wants to re-sign Sam, or that's their starting point, well, then they have to be willing to pivot off of JJ for a Myles Garrett. So you go, well, will you trade us JJ McCarthy and some Alex Van Ginkel or something for Myles Garrett? So then that becomes somewhere that it would make sense for me. The second place that I would say is probably Philadelphia.
Oh my God.
Philadelphia. That's the thing with Philly. Do you know their most expensive players next year? Jalen Hurts. His cap hit is $20 million. That's the highest cap hit out of any team in the NFC.
Even A.J. Brown?
AJ's like 17 or something like that. So they are an unbelievably inexpensive team next year. That's because they've drafted so well in the last 4 years.
Wow.
So they have the cap flexibility and the draft capital. And if you had to throw Nolan Smith into a trade, well, Nolan Smith's been sensational. You're doing that just because for Myles. And so everyone keeps saying Washington. I can entertain Washington. Yeah. I think Washington has to be very careful, though, because while they were awesome this year and it's a great story, don't kind of fall into what the Giants did a couple years ago. Daboll's first year, low expectations. Oh my gosh, we make the playoffs. We're closer than we actually are. And you kind of make decisions off of that. Washington won 5 games in the last play of the game this year. That's not normal in the NFL. If they had won 3 of those, that's not normal in the NFL. They wouldn't have gotten to the playoffs if they'd only won 3 of them. And so the narrative around them would be a little bit different. I think Washington still needs to keep a real honest perspective of where they are. Like, they still have flaws on their roster that were covered up a little bit because of some of those late game heroics. Do you really want to give those 2, 3, 4 valuable picks away for Myles while he's a great player instead of rebuilding the roster?
Yeah, the Texans, there was, I thought, false hope that what they did the previous year and then coming into this year, that I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. But that division is so bad. But they still made the playoffs. Before you go, give me the script for Sunday. If you're writing the script, this is how it plays out.
Oh, if I'm writing the script, Saquon reels off a 70-yard touchdown with like 4.5 minutes to go to put the Eagles up by 4. So a field goal by Kansas City will not cut it. They will methodically drive down the field, and on 3rd and goal from the 4-yard line, Mahomes will do something stupidly Mahomes, and he'll throw a game-winning touchdown to Travis Kelce, and it will be the 3-peat, and Kelce will retire after, and Patrick will be the MVP, and the GOAT conversation then becomes very real. It's been fun up until this point. It hasn't really felt legit. Then it becomes legit.
Write a script for the Eagles.
Winning. The script for the Eagles winning is, Kansas City's not going to like this one. Saquon rips off a big run. Do you know Saquon's average touchdown depth this year is 32 yards? He scored 20 touchdowns. The average of them is 32 yards.
But how many times did he get inside the 2-yard line and then Jalen Hurts scored touchdown? Like 7 times this year?
Yeah.
He would have had,
But to wrap your brain around that, to score 20 touchdowns, and the average length of those are 32. He rips off a real big run, and then throughout the course of the next couple minutes late in that 4th quarter, there's going to be the drive. One of 2 things will happen. There's going to be a bang play, a penalty, not penalty, that should be called against the Chiefs. It's not called. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, they finally had one go against them. That would probably be the one that would light the internet on fire. Or, like I've said all season long, this Philly defense, no one runs to it more, the ball, and punches at it with more people. Somehow they'll punch the ball out of Kelce's hands or something like that, and they'll recover it, and that is the ending of the game type of thing.
Dan Orlovsky, Super Bowl coverage, live on set in New Orleans with Marcus Spears, Mina Kimes, Ryan Clark, Laura Rutledge. Today at 4 Eastern, and you'll be calling the game with Lewis Riddick, Chris Fowler in Australia, or for Australia and New Zealand. You don't have to go to Australia to call this game.
No, I will, though.
Do you have an accent?
Yeah. I don't call it in an Australian accent, though, because I've done that on TV once, and
it didn't go.
I got the Matumbo finger way. Don't do that, Dan.
From management?
People more important than me.
Okay. Thank you for your contributions all year long.
It's always a pleasure.
Always great to talk to you.
Thank you.
Always learn.
Thanks for the introduction as well.
You're welcome. Next year is going to be a whole lot better.
Is it?
I think, unless somebody
I don't
is
think
going to
that's
get
gonna go
involved
away.
that may have, you may have had an impact on their career. Anybody else that you've had an impact?
Well, the joke is I've now helped 2 players from that game into the Hall of Fame. Jared being one, and Calvin Johnson being the other.
But we weren't talking about Calvin Johnson. We weren't going to do that to you.
Yeah, I did it to myself.
Keep your head up, all right?
Oh, not a problem.
Keep your head up. Something good is going to come your way one of these days. Yeah. All right. We'll take a break. Coming up next is Booger McFarland of the Mothership.
Oh, Bug.
Yeah. Stop by. Thank you, Dan.
Yes, sir.